everyone in our streaming world. This is our Weapons Wednesday event. Should be a lot of fun. We have our guest lecturer that's going to be attending, one of the top players of all time, GoodBet. So this should be a very exciting time. GoodBet.
Hello.
Got a stage set up for you.
Yeah, I see that. That's pretty good. So that there's some weapons that spawn here. There might be a few times where I might want to bust out again.
Do you want like all the weapons, or do you want specific ones?
I think it's fine for all the weapons to be spawned.
Rando? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm not going to pick up like a gun every single time when I mention a gun, but there might be just a few instances where...
That you'll need, yeah. Oh, I'm definitely not worried about you. I was more for the other people. Let's see here.
Yeah, it might like shoot gun. Yeah, I understand that.
Right, I'll remind everyone, but you know, here we go.
No, that is a good one. Maybe I'll just pick up 3 guns for the time being, and then you turn them off.
Right. And then you can just do that, and then let me know which ones you like.
Okay.
And I can always drop other ones later.
Right. Try and find a detail of it if possible.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, I don't need to find a detail.
Oh, you want here? Let me get you a. Let me do a quick DT for you. There you go.
Oh, yes.
Maddie's, or there should be DTs about to spawn right now.
Yeah, it's DT right now. good. You can do an up gun with that.
Yeah, just did. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. Welcome, welcome. This should be a pretty enlightening event. I mean, GoodBet
awesome.
here.
This is my first training session, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah. I mean, GoodBet's number 2 in career play, so I mean, there really could not be a better person to give us a good introduction on the new weapons and his new loadout.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
So how does it work? It kind of kicks off and then it's just sort of a bit of a walkthrough sort of tutorial.
Yeah, you know, and it changes depending on the week. So sometimes it'll be where they'll focus on a specific couple weapons, and then it'll be, you know, maybe some solo TDMs with just those weapons, or team deathmatch with just those weapons. Sometimes it'll be really focused more like on, like last week, for example, was much more focused on talking about all the weapons because it was going over the statistics on every single weapon, what happened to them. So that one was, and it's online too. So if you join, if you're in the Discord, right?
When you play solos,
yeah, that's right.
Cool. So I'll send you a link to the video with Pink Punage, who did it actually, and he went over literally every single weapon, which one's the fastest to kill. You know, I mean, every stat possible. Awesome. So that one was much more informative. Great. So it sort of adjusts, I guess you could say, depending on
what's going on.
Yeah, the lecturer too. GoodBet has weapons though, so that means that he's going to want to, I think, partway through, we'll probably bring out the weapons, and then he'll talk about you know, different techniques, and you know, he's really one of the top. You know, and he's also just so you know, modest, which is nice, honestly. You know, for someone of his caliber.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It should be a good time. We should have definitely some more players coming in too. And I'm going to be mindful of the clock.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see how this stream is going. Oh, we have a viewer from Tokyo. Well, wow. That's definitely the farthest viewer we have. For sure.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
VR Step, good job. Oh, and I made a promise to a lot of people that this will be starting at 8:05, and it's 8:03, so it's going to be starting in a couple minutes. Luckily, it is being streamed and recorded at the same time, so the whole session will be visible, and I have a feeling people are just going to join in late anyway, but we don't want to keep all of you early birds, you know, hostage for the bad acts of the late.
Or even just the people on time, let alone early birds.
Yeah, it doesn't have to even be early. Literally, timely versus, you know, just not so much on that same level. And let's see. Oh, Ted, looks like Ted might be joining in a second. Okay, cool. We got Dyer, so let's see. 2, 4, 7, so 6 plus the 1. Yeah, we definitely are going to have some people joining in a little bit late. Hopefully they're less distracting when they enter. That's one thing that we have to discuss in general. Just
that could
etiquette.
That could be a thought too. So when people enter, where do they spawn? Because
exactly.
Maybe maybe the stage can be then set in the future
elsewhere
in an area that they don't
spawn.
Yeah, because they spawn right here, don't they?
I think so. You know, I can't remember because I've spawned in other places before, I feel like. GoodBet, do you know, like,
but I
if
mean,
you're
today-
spawning into the lobby, do we all come into the same spot, or do we?
No, it tends to be. It's like in this general area.
It's in this general,
everybody
yeah.
spawns exactly where. Yeah, I
Gotcha.
It's one of those things where I should really know this concretely, but I think
Right.
it's not everyone spawns right here. I think like people just
Because
spawn
I've
kind of like.
I spawned by the
right there.
the van before, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my points, because that would have been like, if I could, one of the suggestions is to get them to make it so that we can have it where spawning happens in the back, so that we can control, like, if people are coming in late, they're not on top of GoodBet and petting them, you know, like we had last week. Unless you want
the other
to
thing
get
is
pet.
if people spawn anywhere in this area, then maybe the stage then gets set up near the truck.
Exactly. Yeah, we might just move it back
and then
towards
people
Metropolis.
just walk down to it, right? Exactly, and then
That's a good
they
idea.
start behind everyone else. That certainly would work.
I think that's a good idea, because no one spawns down there. So that's a good idea for next time for sure. Okay, so let's see. Oh, Creeper's here, so that might be a good time.
Good, right
Oh,
on time.
wow. Creeper, are you actually there? Oh yeah, okay. He's
Yep,
moving.
I am
He's
here.
moving. Cool.
Yep.
So we'll get this show on the road. It's not a huge turnout yet. I think we'll have some more people joining in. I just don't want to make everyone else wait, because other people are tardy for the party. So the first, I mean, there's not very many people here right now to explain this to you, but just like what we're going to try to avoid, because we are streaming now a lot more regularly, we want to try to avoid distraction. So like, I'll obviously be standing somewhere where I can obviously see the stage, but if we could avoid as much as possible, like the sticker spamming and stuff like that, because it sort of gets all glitchy on my stream. That, like, at least on the stage, that would be better. I really appreciate that, but I know all of you guys are good anyway, so it's really not a lesson for you guys in the first place.
Last time I was in Discord.
Oh wait, you couldn't hear me?
No, I can hear you. I couldn't hear
Oh.
that if he was talking.
Ah, I see. Cool. So yeah, no, that's the one thing I ask, is no sticker spamming. That'd be super helpful. And shooting if you have a gun, but you shouldn't have a gun. So. Okay, well, I think people are going to come in a little late. Let me put on full chat instead of proximity, because I think it's on proximity chat.
Also, you know, just to keep it to where, you know, like, just in case you have background or something that we can hear, just to get rid of distractions, like, if y'all could, like, you know, mute as soon as it starts and unmute when you need to ask questions, that'd be great.
That's a great point too. Yeah, definitely stay muted if possible. It's just helpful. And like, try not to fly super as much as, you know, try to make less noise so that I can hear GoodBet, because that's obviously why we're here, for Mr. Banana Bag.
How do I mute myself?
If you go into your
You
mini
go to
menu,
the map, and then
Yeah.
if you look at your name, right beside your name is a microphone. If you click that, it should show across instant.
yeah, and then it'll mute you.
Oh, I know that's for muting other people. I didn't know that works for yourself as well.
It works
Yeah, it
for
does.
yourself too.
Great.
Awesome. So, GoodBet, people are going to join, but there's
Yeah,
a
that's fine.
few people streaming right now anyway, so
Yeah, I'm
I
actually
turned it to
streaming. I just
open.
can't stream myself.
You're streaming too? Okay, cool. And I made it open chat so that obviously we don't all have to be like on top of you in order to hear you.
Right.
So we
Yep.
should be good there.
I didn't know you streamed GoodBet. I had no clue.
It's very rare. I stream like every so often.
That's why I couldn't hear you. I had you muted.
Yeah. We were in Discord like a few months ago.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot I had you muted.
You had GoodBet
Okay,
muted.
so-
Yeah.
That's
It's
good.
like when we're in Discord, we'll like over there, so you're each other.
Oh, Jakey. We actually have 6 Beer Mentoring as a. Oh, I didn't know we had a Twitch channel for that yet.
We do. Yeah, we got it set up now. So we will be officially going through. We might have to update some of the banner work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I'll just start.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, go ahead and start.
Yeah. So I guess like this is all about the weapons and like loadouts, and I think like as a general idea, when I'm like thinking about what I want in my loadout, ideally I'm gonna want 3 guns most of the time. And the way I structure my loadout is that you're gonna want like a long range gun, something that's like a good spray gun, and then like a close range gun. So in these different categories, I have different ways of thinking about like which guns I prefer, and like sort of how I think about it is you want to think of like a gun that like fills like a really good niche. So like among the spray guns, these are guns that are really good at breaking builds quickly and are good at just suppressive fire, right? Among the spray guns, I would generally say the SMGs are better than the ARs in terms of like that specific niche of like being a spray gun. Now, why is that? Well, the SMGs, particularly thinking of like the MP5, the P90, these take 6 bullets to break a build. If you compare this to the AKM or the RFB, they take 7 bullets. And also they have a faster fire rate. So they're just a much better guns at that specific niche of breaking builds and really pressuring people. If they're trying to build push you or something like that, I'm going to much prefer having an MP5, P90, or the Uzis. Uzis are theoretically, I would say, the best spray gun if you're able to consistently use both your right and left hand. A good example of somebody who is very good at using the Uzi is Scanter. Scanter is able to put them to really good use. Uzis take 8 bullets to break a build. Combined with the fact that you're able to fire them simultaneously, you can break builds actually really quick. The RFB and AKM as spray guns. So the AKM, as you guys probably know, has a faster fire rate than the RFB. However, though, I would say I kind of prefer the RFB. The main reason for this is that though they have essentially the same recoil pattern, it's just that the RFB, I'm going to be hitting a slightly higher percentage of shots with the RFB. And this is especially useful if I'm one-handing, especially if I'm shooting somebody at like a longer range distance than the AKM. Now the AKM, though, one thing that sets it apart from the RFB, notably, faster fire rates, so faster time to kill. The other thing is that the AKM actually has, it's better at longer ranges. There's less damage drop-off. I was testing this extensively in the gun range, and I was looking at the damage drop-off for all the guns, and the AKM actually has much better, does much better damage at longer ranges than the RFB, surprisingly. Now thinking about, like, for example, the long-range guns, the OP is definitely very meta at the moment. The OP is pretty much the gun that's been changed the least since the last update. In the last update, the OP in the highest levels of comp, or even just mid or in pubs, the OP is just a fantastic gun. I mean, you just get so much damage off in one shot. You really punish head peekers. You can't go wrong with using an OP in your long-range loadout. Especially now that the Seiko is basically obsolete, this actually frees up a lot of sniper ammo because, in a way, you find all these Seikos lying around, and you get all this sniper ammo from the Seikos. And the Seiko, back when it was viable, it tended to chew through ammo a lot faster than the OP. Now, I just find that if you have somebody in your team that's using the OP, they're generally going to have more ammo available to them. So that's like a big bonus, especially competitive, where in the early to mid games, sniper ammo tends to be scarce. Now it seems to be just a little bit easier, or more likely that somebody on the team who's using OP will just have more sniper ammo, because you're not going to have to deal with somebody else in your team using the FAL. So the FAL is a gun that I think in the current meta is extremely good. The reason behind this is that, well, 29 damage a body shot. The Gold 1911 also does 29 damage in a body shot, and 45 headshots. This thing does 43 headshots, 29 body shot. This thing is just incredibly good. It takes 4 bullets to break a build, so it's not the best build breaker, but in terms of its ability to just do really good damage at long range and medium range, I mean, it's just incredible. Like, the amount of shots you can do, a lot of times, even against, like, the other good players, you often have, like, about a second to a little under a second before they start to build, like, to react to you firing at them. Pretty reliably with the FAL, because of how quickly you can shoot it, you can often get around 58 damage, close to 60 damage off within that span of time. When you factor in that, like, if they're, say, fighting another team, or they're distracted, or they're flying, quite often you can just really shred them really quickly, especially if you get a couple headshots off on them. So I think the FAL right now, very good gun in the meta. You can kind of think of it as like a Seiko replacement, in addition to the Magnum, which is another fantastic long. The important thing to note with all these guns now, in comparison to the UP or the Seiko, which is obsolete, these guns are all hit scan now. And this is a huge change to well, really how you play this game now. I think the game, you have to rely a little bit more on hardcover now than used to be the case. So that's like medium to longer ranges now. I find myself taking a lot more damage now than was past. Well, hit scan really is just a game changer. The MK18 is one of those guns where I wouldn't recommend most players to use unless they're very comfortable with it, if they have a lot of practice with it. The MK18 is particularly hard to one-hand, especially if you're trying to one-hand it against somebody at a long range. It's very impractical to do that. If you're actually aiming down the reticle, though, and use the MK18, it's actually a really good gun. I think the other important thing with the MK18, I think a lot of people don't realize it when they pick it up, is the fire rate might seem kind of slow, because if you're just trying to spam the trigger with the MK18, this is going to put a cap on the fire rate, and it's not going to fire as fast as it otherwise would. It's similar to how with the Magnum. If you find the right rhythm, you can fire that thing pretty quickly. It's a similar thing with the MK18. In fact, from what I saw, the MK18 has a slightly faster fire rate now than it did before this most recent June update. So the MK18 actually has a place in the meta, I would say. Overall, I would say that the FAL is just a better option over the MK18. But if you're not able to find a FAL and you get some practice with the MK18, I think it's very much a viable gun if you want to use it. Long-range slots in your inventory. Moving on to some of the close-range guns. The DT11, M10, and Matadors. After the DT11 nerf, I think you can get away with honestly using any of the shotguns. What I would say, though, is that with the Matadors, if you're going to be using the Matadors, there's a few things you have to consider. The one-star Matadors, generally not a great idea to pick them up. The max damage for a one-star Matador, if you're just using, well, as example 1, it's going to be doing 12 damage. Plus with 2, it's going to be 24, 24, 24, 24, right? It's not absolutely terrible, but when you compare it to the gold Matadors, so the Matadors, they move up in increments of 4 damage from the white to the gold. So white Matadors 12 damage, blue 16, purple 20, gold 24. Huge difference. In fact, among the guns, I would say that Matadors is probably the gun that makes the most difference between the 1 stars and 4 stars among guns. Just because you just get a massive increase in damage. Gold Matadors are very scary. One thing to keep in mind when using the gold Matadors, though, you got to be careful when you're looking up. Quite often, if you see somebody like up there, if you quickly flick up like this while looking up, you're gonna accidentally, reload the Matadors, and this can really screw you over in a fight where, let's say somebody built up or they're hardcover and they're about to push you over. If I all of a sudden react and just like snap to them like that, I'm gonna be accidentally reloading the Matadors, and that's gonna slow me down in the fight. And in the end, I might even lose the fight just because that additional half second or whatever it is, if the Matador is accidentally flicking, that can actually cost you. So that's something to keep in mind when using the Matadors is you don't want to be flicking up super quickly if somebody is right above you in a close range fight. The M10. The M10 is also one of those guns that was largely unchanged. I mean, technically it actually does have like a little bit more recoil. Like you'll notice it kicks back a little bit more. But really it seems essentially as easy to shoot as it did before the update. The M10 definitely has a place in the meta, especially if you get a purple or gold M10. If you compare it to the DT11, the DT11 I think is a gun that, especially a lot of people who are not comfortable with it, they're pretty scared of using, especially now, because, the second shot I discovered is actually somewhat random in terms of where it goes. So it's not deterministic. So if I shoot this, right, shoot in the same spot, notice that the second shot here, at once it landed here, and then up here, it like landed up here once. So when you're shooting the DT11, especially if you're using it like at, say, this distance, it's not as practical as with like the M10, but the DT11 I think is overall going to be better in most situations than the M10, for example, just because the potential DPS from it is higher. But right now I've got a couple DT11. But you can get a lot of shots out pretty quickly. Now, granted, I am on index, so I am able to reload a little bit faster than Quest Standalone users. That being said, though, you do have lots of very good Quest Standalone users that are able to reload the DT11 pretty quickly and pretty consistently. Very obvious example, So the DT11, I think that's a gun that I would definitely recommend. Like anyone here who's not very comfortable with using it, I think it's worth putting some time into just practicing it, going into a custom room or something like that, and just using the DT11 over and over and over to get comfortable with. That being said, though, if you don't want to use the DT11, I think you're perfectly fine in this meta using the Matadors or the M10. I think they can compete with the DT11, especially, like I said, you get a purple or gold Matadors. Whew, that's such a good shotgun. Sword. Okay, well, sword is another item that you can put in your close range slot. Sword, it's very annoying. I'm definitely probably the item that I get the most annoyed with, because it's not uncommon for somebody, if they have like one of the teammates to go down, they'll just go in a building like right here, hide like in the corner near a window or something, wait for somebody to come in and just slice and dice you and you're just dead. And it's so frustrating. But it's also just incredibly effective, especially against the good players. Because the good players, if they encounter somebody in a public game, they underestimate how good they are. And if they don't know they have a sword, someone like me or some other player will just go, okay, well, they're kind of weak. I'm just going to go into the building and kill them quickly with my DT11 or Matadors, whatever. And sometimes it's like, most of the time I would say, you don't realize they have a sword and you just die so quickly. I think it also especially helps if you're going to be using the sword. If you're in like a bigger building, like inside a building, it sometimes makes sense if you know that another team is likely to be pushing you in, say, the next like 5-10 seconds or something, 2 seconds. It actually makes a lot of sense to throw down some builds in the building to kind of construct like a bit of a maze in there. Because what this, why you want to do that, I think, is just simply the fact that when somebody's pushing you into the building, once they realize you have a sword and you have all these builds and you force them to move through these builds, they can't get away like nearly as easily. It's kind of cramping them in with all these builds, and it's going to be much harder for them to back up and escape, enter into the building. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so one thing I do think is going to change with the meta as time goes on, or I think something that people will realize, is that the RFB, I was mentioning earlier that I do prefer the RFB a little bit over the AK, although there are reasons to, that I think theoretically the AKM is actually better than the RFB. I do think as time goes on, many people are going to start using the AKM a little bit more, just because you see this pattern all the time in this game where a gun will get nerfed quite a bit, and it'll actually still be like a decent gun, but people will like overreact and like, oh, it's just total garbage now, it's not a good gun now. And I think you're starting to realize a lot of players now are like, okay, I thought the AKM was total trash, but now I can kind of see it's actually not that bad. That being said, though, the AKM, going back to what I was talking about with the spray guns, you want in your slot, your inventory slot, a gun that's a good spray gun. The reason why I think like the MP5 or the P90 is better than the AKM, simply, it just breaks builds faster. And when you're going up against somebody who's a very good player, and they're trying to, close the gap and push you, it's really important that you use like a gun that can break builds quick. I also forgot to mention the M60. So the M60 is kind of a niche spray gun, where it's you can't you have to be a lot more defensive in how you use it. So like what I mean by that is like it's more of like a support gun. If I try and like I don't know, rush somebody down with an M60, it's not going to be very effective, of course, right? It's the initial startup time of firing the M60, not going to be that effective. What it's really good at, though, is let's say you have like your teammates are pushing up like in planes or something. You can then be a little bit further back, get like an angle, like a bit of a flank on another team, and then you can just suppress them by firing with the M60, breaking their builds, and just being a huge annoyance to the other team while they're fighting your couple, or say 10, 20 meters away. So the M60, its use is a little bit more niche. Generally, I'm not going to recommend people pick up a white or blue M60. It just takes too long for it to initially start up. There's that initial startup time where it just goes, right? And generally, I'm going to be avoiding a white or blue M60 in most, unless I just really can't find anything else. If it's a, then yeah, of course, I'll pick up like a, what else is there? Yeah, I mean, if it had to be like, if I had to choose what guns I would... Oh, is that your hand up, Creeper?
Yeah. I'm just going to tell you one thing right now that I actually have found experimenting with the M60. There is a very bad glitch on it currently.
Oh, is it really?
I do not think a lot of people actually understand or see yet or even notice. But I noticed that when I shoot it, you know, like, and it revs up, as soon as it starts to go to full speed on the bullets and I stop it, then the actual recoil that pushes it upward, it's stuck on the upward motion.
Oh,
like,
really?
as soon as you stop firing, it's, like, stuck upward, and you have to unequip it and then equip it back in your hand in order to fix it.
Yeah, I noticed something like that too. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I was running, doing some
I think it's a
firing,
glitch.
and then when I stopped, it's like at an angle, and I'm thinking, like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. In order to fix it, you unequip it and equip it. But yeah, I don't know if Big Box even knows of this yet, but I do know for a fact that that it is a very bad glitch, because I've actually probably lost a lot of fights with the M60 because of that glitch. Because the recoil, I'm pretty sure it doubles up the recoil if you leave it stuck on that motion and then you start it back up again.
Yeah.
So
I'll try and replicate that at some point. That sounds pretty bad. There've been a couple like pretty bad bugs this game has had. I forget what gun it was, or it might have been multiple guns. There was this one bug in the past where if you held out your arms really far, like the recoil was basically canceled. I think it was like on the MP5. So like, it was just like a straight beam. Anyways, yeah, that is interesting about the M60. Yeah, think about some of the other guns.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't really talk about the Magnum very much. The Magnum, yeah, I'm sure a lot of you realize it's probably the gun that's the closest to like a Seiko replacement at this point. And the damage drop off on it's actually pretty good too. So though it's a pistol, like the 1911 and PX4, the damage drop off on those things is pretty bad. So you don't have to go that far away, and then it'll start not doing maximum damage. The Magnum though, it actually does max damage from pretty far away. So much so that its damage drop off, it's better than that of the RFB, which is an assault rifle, or the M60, right? So Magnum is actually very useful at quite far ranges. And, I mean, what else is there really to say about the Magnum? It's hit scan, makes it much easier to hit shots.
What's hit scan?
Oh, yeah, hit scan. So hit scan is like, it applies to this most recent update where all guns besides the shotguns and the snipers, wherever you're aiming your gun, it just instantly hits that area.
Well,
like, when I'm
I
playing,
don't think they. Sorry, but
sure.
they have hit scan. I know they have hit scan on, I think, all the pistols. I'm not sure about the 1911, but I know hit scan is on all the pistols. I think it could be on the Seiko. I'm not sure.
No, it's not on the Seiko.
No,
it's not on the Seiko or the Op.
Or the Op, yeah.
Okay.
Or the DT11.
So it's the
as well.
travel time.
It's the travel time. Yeah. So
Okay.
essentially,
The
like,
travel
the
time,
travel
hit scan. Yeah, it's like laser tag. Just think of it like laser tag. I know he could probably explain it, but yeah, it's basically like laser tag. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's basically it. It's just instant travel time at this point. I've tested it with all the guns, the FAL, AK, the SMGs. They seem to be all hit scan. I've tested it at really long ranges against other people and told them here. It seems to be pretty much instantaneous. If I pulled the trigger, just instantly. Right.
Okay.
So it's really been a big change to the meta, like with the introduction of hit scan on most guns.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've literally had to force myself to try to adjust to not leading my shots. I'm so used to leading, so used to the lead time of every single individual weapon, that now I'm sitting here like, wait a second, what the hell am I doing? This is hit scan. Like, it's instant. You got to really focus on where they are at that moment.
Yeah, with knowing that we've already naturally gotten used to, being a more realistic thing and making it to where you gotta like lead your shots just by like an inch. Now like you have to get natural to the fact that it's literally like laser tag. It's like the Laser X that, I played with like 5 years back, like the Laser X like kid. Basically laser tag. If you don't know what that is.
It's been a big adjustment for many people. I remember when I was doing the play test. And right after the update came out, people are just like, crap, like I just keep on leading my shots, like I'm missing shots that I really shouldn't be missing. I think now a lot of people are getting used to it, but even still, you'll get people that are still trying to lead their shots when you don't have to do that anymore. What else? Oh yeah, so I was going back to guns that sorry, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, to me the biggest issue there was I was dying a lot faster.
Yeah.
So I have gotten used to always have cover and always pre-build a lot more. Because before I could always get away. Now it's like, I think I'm gonna be okay, and boom, dead.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, that's been something that's been kind of annoying where if I have a team that's chasing me down, before with the guns when they had bullet velocities that weren't just instant. It was a lot easier to get away from a team if I established like a distance of like, let's say I was 30 meters away or 20 meters away. A lot of the times I was going to be able to avoid their shots. Now with hit scan, it's a lot harder. Going to like my preferred loadouts. So, I mean, I'm pretty open to using all kinds of different loadouts, guns in my loadouts. It's just the general principle is I'm most often going to want 3 guns in my loadout. However, there are going to be situations where you can definitely get away with just having 2 guns in your loadout. So some examples of like 2-gun loadouts that you could definitely use that I think are very viable, and this includes like even in a high-level comp. You could do DT-11 and then like an AKM or RFB, or even a FAL, right? Because those guns kind of cover most of the ranges. DT-11 or this also is not just DT-11. Matadors. If you got a shotgun and then something that is like pretty good at longer ranges and also kind of okay at putting pressure on people building to you, loadouts like that are pretty good. You can do what else? MP5. MP5 is also a great gun where you can just do that and then another shotgun, right? You could do. This one's a lot more risky, but if you're somebody who's really, really good at sniping, like somebody like Scanter or teammate Danderson or Clev, I suppose you could get away with doing like an op loadout with then like a shotgun. That's a little risky though, just because for one, you're not going to be getting off as much consistent damage as if you had like a spray gun. That's another nice thing about the spray guns is that it's just more reliable, consistent damage when you use them. With the snipers, even among the best snipers in the game, it's not. It's pretty common for them to like shoot, miss, shoot, miss, shoot, miss. Do that like 8, 9, 10 times before they finally hit one shot with the op, right? Whereas at least with like a spray gun or a FAL or something like that, even if you're missing a lot of your shots, you're still probably going to hit like 1 or 2 shots at least in your full magazine, which is not ideal, but that's better than with the op, where I've had times where I'm scrimming with Scanter or Danderson. And I remember Danderson, he's a great op player. There was one scrim though where he was just using the op mostly. And normally he hits most of his op shots, but he'll sometimes have games where he just hits like 2 or 3 op shots. And that's just how it is sometimes. It's just a more inconsistent gun. And the guns where naturally you can shoot more with. It's just the payoff with the op is that it's devastating for the other players when you actually do hit your shots, especially if it's a headshot. That's a complete game changer to fight, where if the fight is relatively even, let's say there's another team that's fighting you, and the health and shield is roughly equal between the teams, if you or your teammates hit an op headshot, let's say it's a purple op, 148, that's a big deal, because at that point, you can then get a lot more aggressive. Because that other player, they then have to get out of the fight very briefly, heal up with some shield sodas or shield shakers, use a banana. And in that couple seconds of time where they got to heal up, that's like the golden opportunity where your team now can all of a sudden advance and push them, or at least get a better position on them during the fight. That's the big thing with the op, and that's what makes it so devastating. It's that just you can get so much damage off in one shot and just completely turn the tide of a fight. Whereas with other guns, the AKM, MP5, FAL, at most against these really good players, if they have plentiful builds and their positions and total crap, you might get off like 60, 70 damage. And then they're going to build and then heal up, and it's not that big of a deal if you get 60, 70 damage off. That's not going to turn the tide of a fight. So, I mean, the op is very, very good still in this meta, even with it not being hit scan. As far as what guns I like to use for my long-range guns, favorite is FAL at the moment. Part of this is also driven by the fact that, well, 2 things. One, in my competitive team, Scanter and Danderson, they're the ones that tend to use the op. So my comparative advantage is to use the FAL or the MK18 or the Magnum while they use the op, right? Then when I'm playing the public games, I'm somebody who really enjoys just pushing people. That's where I get most of my fun from playing these public games. It can be fun to sit back and take snipes and do long-range fights, but I get most of my fun from just hard pushing into people. And that's when a playstyle does not lend itself well to using the op a lot. Yes, you do have players that are pretty good at doing the op quick scopes and things like that. But that was never me. I was never somebody who's just like, oh, I'm gonna do these crazy, op quick scopes. And even then, even among the people who are the best at like op quick scopes, they're not going to be getting off damage as consistently as somebody who is just very comfortable at using the FAL, right? or some other gun. What else was there to say? I mean, I feel like I pretty much covered everything, like when it comes to. Oh yeah, in terms of heals, okay, let me go over this, and also utility items. I haven't really touched on those, right? Grenades. Grenades are very good. There's a reason why at the moment they're actually banned in Arc League's Diamond Division, and I think actually the ban has now extended to all of Gold, Red, Purple, whatever, all the divisions, right? Part of that is just because they're somewhat broken at the moment. They can hit you through the wall, which is kind of broken. I think a lot of players that encounter that pretty frustrated when that happens to them. So that's the main reason why they're banned. If they weren't broken like that, they would be allowed. But also among how to say it, grenades and swords, two most annoying items to go up against, because there's some situations where you just cannot do anything. If you're going up against a full team, there's actually a competitive team that's they're well known for just using a lot of grenades. It's NNN, they're a Japanese team, and in competitive, oh my god, like I would hate going up against them like in the mid to late game, because a lot of them would just fill up their inventory slots with grenades, and really there are just some situations where you just can't do anything. Like it's not as simple as just keep on building. No, if they're tossing 4, 6, 8 grenades at you, good luck. You're not going to be able to just build that off and protect yourself from those grenades. So grenades can really, really be useful, especially when you're going up against somebody who's like a good player, because a lot of the good players, like they'll just assume that I don't know, like they're not going to be able to do much against somebody that's tossing 4 grenades at them. If they're 4 well-placed grenades, honestly, there's just nothing you can do against that. So grenades really, really good. It does take up a slot which you could use for another weapon or healing item, but if they're allowed in the comp league or whatever, I'd say go for it. Use them. Really good. Zone grenades are a little more niche. They're more useful late game, and I would definitely recommend like late game, instead of taking up your inventory slots with, say, shield shakers, for example, probably better off using zone grenade. It's very context dependent. I wouldn't say like, always use have an inventory slot dedicated to zone grenades over shield shakers. But a lot of times, end game, yeah, very good idea to have zone nades. What else? Oh yeah, bananas, shield shakers, sodas. Yeah, most often, like throughout most of the games I play, I'm generally going to be doing 6 shield sodas, 3 shield shakers, 2 bananas. Occasionally grenades if they're allowed in comp. If it's pubs, occasionally I will pick up grenades because they're pretty good, especially if I know I'm good up against somebody in the lobby that's good, because it catches them off guard. Bananas or even the health sodas, more useful later game for obvious reasons. Zone becomes more of a factor as the game goes on. There might be situations where you have to go through the zone, or you might even have to do a zone run. If you got a team that's holding you out of zone, well, you got to do a zone run. You got to run through, the red. You got to take a lot of damage, and do that. It's a good idea to stock up on some bananas. Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say about the utility items, I tend to prefer the shield sodas over the shield shakers. The reasoning being is that with the shield sodas, yes, at maximum, 1 slot is 6 shield sodas. That translates to 120 shield that you can replenish with that. Shield shakers, stack 3, that's 150. The thing, though, with the shield sodas that makes them a lot better, in my view, is the fact that during fights, you can just bust them out and just slurp them down real quick. Shield shaker, it's a little different. If you take 100 damage or whatever and you lose all that shield, well, now you're going to be out of the fight for a little while. You got to shake up my shield shaker. You're going to be out of the fight, and that's going to kind of screw over your team. Whereas the shield sodas, if you get really good at slurping them down, you can just go, pop, 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 and you just get right back into the fight pretty quickly. So that's my main reason why I tend to prefer the shield sodas. If I have to choose one or the other, I'm going to be taking shield sodas over shield shakers mostly. That's pretty much it in terms of like my reasoning for like my loadout. If there's any more questions, I'll take them.
Yeah, so is it fair to say that your loadout will change dependent on the time of the fight? So, the beginning stages, obviously, as you said, the end stage, once that square is so small and you can drop a zone grenade down there, I mean, that's devastating. So how does that adjust? Like, what would you say you don't have to maybe do all of it, but your start out loadout versus your end game loadout.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's true that at different stages of the game, I'm going to be preferring slightly different guns. So for obvious reasons, if it's the end zone, like let's say it's the zone where there's just like 1 or 2 teams left, guns that I'm more likely to prefer at that point in time, especially if the zone ends up on some place that's open. Let's say the end zone even ends like around here, right? Yeah, sure, you got this hardcover here and some of these rocks, but M60 end game with a zone like this where it's pretty open, M60 is going to get really good. So sometimes I'll notice that if it's getting to the end zone and the zone's starting to shrink down, and I notice that it's likely going to be closing down on an area that's just a lot of open grounds with very little hardcover, if I notice an M60, I'll even drop like a really good gun. Let's say I'll drop like a golden MP5 or something for like a purple M60, maybe even a blue M60, although probably not, but probably not that, but purple M60, yeah, probably will. I'll pick that up. If I'm starting to see end zone in that open area, oh yeah, no, M60 would be a really good gun. For obvious reasons, once end zone or the zone starts to close down a lot, you're going to be finding people using spray guns a lot more. At this stage of the game, people have accumulated a lot of builds. You're going to be seeing a lot of people that are going to be doing build pushes. There'll be teams that notice like, hey, like we've got like a pretty crappy part of the zone right here. This is a really bad zone corner. This team has a better position. We got to take that position by pushing over there really quickly. They got to use builds. That team that has the better position in zone, naturally, they're going to be wanting to use their spray guns, the MP5s, the P90s, the M60s, or even AKM, to pressure, or Uzis, to punish the people that are trying to push over and take their good position in zone. Right? So spray guns become a lot more relevant later in the game, and for very obvious reasons, shotguns. Shotguns are super important at this. What I find in competitive and especially competitive, really, is that shotguns are not nearly as important in the early game, just because there's just so much more open ground and a lot more options for teams to just run away. When you're playing against the really good teams or really good players in lobbies, they tend to do a really good job of getting away early to mid game from you. So it's you can't often force a shotgun fight as easily as you might want in the early games, just because they have a lot of room to move. So you're gonna generally not going to be using your shotguns as much early game. I would say, health items, I mentioned earlier, you're going to be using health items more in the late game, just because zone, if you're going to be doing any zone runs, you're going to go through zone, it's generally going to be more important to have health items later in the game. So, that's just kind of how I think about it. Op is less important late in the game. That being said, it's still really damn good, because you could really punish head pickers very easily. So even the op is actually quite good. So I would say, like, I'm probably going to be dropping like an MK18 late game. I'm going to be dropping my FAL. FAL's not going to be as useful late game, although it's still pretty decent. Generally just guns that are not as good as spray guns or up close, not going to be used as much. But that's just the main change late game, what guns I prioritize.
That's super helpful. We didn't lose you, did we?
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
No, okay.
Your arms
yeah,
went
sorry.
one-sided.
This has been happening recently. Yeah. Something happened with my headset. I think it's with my cable. I just disconnected briefly. It's back now.
So, towards the end of the game, if you have, say, a DT11, AK, and an AWP,
yeah,
will you drop the AK then to get a grenade, for example?
No, I mean, I think the AK is still really good to have, just because it's, yeah, sure, it's not as good as, like, the SMGs at breaking builds, but you still really want to spray gun towards the end. It's just the case that towards the end game, with these better players, they're going to be doing build pushes. And if you don't have some gun that's breaking a lot of their builds quickly, that can be pretty bad news. Would I drop the AK late game for a grenade? I might drop the AK temporarily to pick up the grenade and throw it, but I'm not going to just completely abandon the AK at that stage of the game and just,
okay,
yeah, pick up the grenade and move on, right? Yeah, I think towards the end game, if you are going to drop anything, it's got to probably be like shield shakers or something. If you want to take up that slot with like a zone grenade or... Because the end game fights, like, if people are pretty close by, you're not going to be able to as easily get off, shield shakers. You can't just like, shake while a team's pushing you. That's just not realistic. yeah, so that's just what I would do.
Thanks.
If there's any other questions about like what I like to do with loadouts or things like that, yeah,
Question,
I mean, just
not
to
maybe
go over
loadout,
yes.
but just so you said you use the Index. Did you use the Oculus before? What did you use before the Index?
So I've actually always been SteamVR.
Okay.
Back in 2017, I used the HTC Vive, and I used that until late 2020, and then I switched over to the Index. So I actually played this game a little bit on the Vive. At that time, though, I was actually playing with broken base station. So at that time, it was weird. I could only one-hand guns, because whenever I had two-handed guns, for whatever reason, I just lost track a lot more, so my guns would just like float off. So there was like the first 1,000 or so games I played this game, it was on the Vive, and it was almost always just one-handed gun. So in a way, that kind of helped me get used to one-handed guns early on. I had to get really comfortable with that. And then all of a sudden, once I switched over to Index, I'm like, wow, I can two hands. Oh, I can just like laser beam people. This is so easy now. So that was like really nice when I moved over to Index, because at the time I was like, okay, do I want to spend like $150 like fixing my buying a new base station for my Vive, or am I willing to take the plunge and just buy an Index? It's like, I'll just buy an Index.
That's awesome.
You haven't mentioned the ump at all. Where does that fit in?
Yeah, so the ump is it's one of those guns where it's okay. It's yes, it breaks builds in 6 bullets like all the SMGs besides the Uzis. Its fire rate's slower than the MP5 and the P90. It does 12 damage, body shot, 15 headshot. So generally, it's not as good as the MP5 or P90, just because the time to kill is going to be slower. And the other problem with the UMP in comparison to the MP5, the nice thing about the MP5, so obviously it's not an MP5, but the MP5 has a scope on it, and many of you probably know this, but some people don't. In fact, I've been surprised. There's some really good players that learned this really late. The recoil is actually different depending on whether you look down the reticle and two-hand it versus if you just two-hand it and you don't look down the reticle.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's still like a lot of players that are actually pretty good at the game that actually don't know this, which is crazy. I actually had a comp teammate who'd won tournaments with me who didn't know this until like he was like 3,000 games in. And so the big thing with the MP5 that makes it nicer to use than the P90 or UMP at slightly longer ranges is that when you're aiming down the reticle, the scope with the MP5, you can control the recoil more easily than with the P90 and UMP, simply because, well, they don't have a scope on it. So if you take the P90 or UMP and let's say you tried to aim down it, like there's no scope on it, but let's say you tried to aim down it like, it's iron sights, it doesn't reduce the recoil more than if you just held it down here and two it. The MP5, though, it actually, and all guns with these reticles, if you hold it up to your eye and you see the reticle, this actually makes the recoil less. Anyways, a lot of you probably know that, but some people don't, right? I think that's like an important reason why the MP5 is a little more versatile of an SMG than the P90 or the UMP. So you can use that.
If I could add on to that, there also is the same thing that a lot of players don't know about with the Seiko. I don't know if they still have it. They probably do, because if they didn't, that'd be kind of weird. But the thing about the scope on the Seiko is that when you look down, it does that same exact thing. But the thing is that it's also like they have some sort of thing where it tracks which way you're facing, or I mean, which way, compare, I don't know how to say.
No, I think really I might how to explain it. Right? But, so with the Seiko, it's
if you move it off of the.
Yeah, so as soon as you stop seeing the crosshair, but even if you're not seeing the reticle, it'll have the recoil pattern of like you looking down the reticle. So I don't know if that makes sense, but if you try it with these guns with the reticles, you move it up just high enough where you're actually not looking at the dot. You're not looking at the reticle. It'll have that recoil pattern of the if you were just looking down the reticle without actually having to look at the reticle. It's the same thing with the Seiko, where you can kind of hold it sort of down at your hip, but you're tricking the game into thinking you're looking through the reticle when you're actually not. And that made it easier to hip fire the Seiko rapidly. That being said, though, the Seiko is pretty much worthless now. The only time I think it's worth using a Seiko if you have a gold. Gold does 60 damage, body shots, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is it... I have not familiarized myself super well with the damage numbers now. Is it 106 or is it 103 damage on the headshot?
I think it's like 100. I'm pretty sure it was like 96 actually headshot for the 1-star.
For the 1-star Seiko, it's 75 headshot damage and then 45.
Right, it was. It was 75. Yeah. Right.
So, anyways, point being is that if you do come across the gold Seiko, if you are comfortable with Seiko, gold Seiko's not bad. It's pretty much as good as the old, the previous updates blue Seiko. So, it's all right. You know, it's not a terrible idea to use a gold Seiko. The other ones, though, the purple 55 damage body shot, you know, I'm going to be preferring a foul, right? Foul, 29, 29, 29, right? The Seiko, especially now with that like extra bounce where you shoot it, you can't rapid fire it as quickly. Whereas the foul, you can much more reliably just keep on shooting it and get consistent damage off with it. So Seiko really just not worth using for the most part.
Yeah, the thing about the thing that I really noticed about the update that they tried going for here with the new weapon specifically is the one aspect of all the new guns that I've noticed that's really changed all the strategy is the fact of it like having no drop of damage for longer ranges. Like it has no drop like a sniper does. And it really changes it because you can take because you can get taken like almost your entire shield worth of damage. Like if I were right here and you're all the way on the, top of that like rocket looking building, I don't know what they call that, but the advertisement tower.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Like that's a big change also in the update. So not only are the guns hit scanned, so it's actually easy to hit people at longer ranges now. The damage drop off has changed, so that the damage drop off was decreased. So now you do more damage at longer ranges now, generally speaking, with the guns. So it's you're incentivized to take longer range fights now in this current meta. And as mentioned before, this means that people have to play a little closer to hardcover. Just have to be a little more careful when going out in the open now, especially at these longer ranges. So, yep.
One question.
Also go ahead.
I never managed to answer for myself. 3-star OMP or 1-star P90 or 1-star MP5? I can never decide which way I want to go.
That is actually a tricky one because with the 3-star UMP, you can one-hand that thing pretty damn easily. MP5, P90, it's going to be a lot harder to one-hand that, especially at like medium longish ranges.
Yeah.
I think it's weird because I think if I have okay, so it depends on what the rest of my loadout is. If we're talking early game, just if I had to just shoot one of those guns, right? Probably the 3-star UMP. Later in the game, though, if I need a gun that's really good at just breaking builds, which is often what I'm using the spray guns for, just using them to punish people when they're pushing, honestly, I might actually prefer the 1-star P90, which is weird because overall, I actually think the MP5 is my preferred SMG, and I think overall it's just probably the best SMG. It has the fastest time to kill, it does 13 damage. Yes, its fire rate slightly slower than the P90, but it still has a faster time to kill. You can use that slightly longer ranges. But I think strictly, if I'm just looking for a spray gun to fill out my loadout, if I had to choose between those three, it's probably going to be the 1-star P90.
Okay, thanks.
Any more things?
Just adding on to what I was saying about the Seiko, the one specific thing that a lot of people don't really notice about it, I mean, there was that option like you talked about with the MP5, but, just as another thing, just to add this on, that, if you know the scope of it, the reason why I see a lot of players, almost every single pro player, actually, pretty much every single one, before the update, when they actually use the Seiko, only look down their gun only on the sight where it's right by their eye, is the fact that when you're trying to, let's just say, I was facing this way at church or something, and there was an enemy down beside me down there, and I decided to quickly just, jerk my hand and look that way. It's the fact that, if you have your gun to where it's out of your actual, eyesight, then it'll actually randomize the Seiko's spray on it. And it tracks that, from what I know, by the actual scope. So you always got to have the scope in your eye, eye level.
Yeah, it's true about the Seiko. As soon as the game thinks you're not looking through the reticle anymore, it just randomizes and goes off into pretty random directions.
Yeah, same thing as the op, except the op you actually have to two-hand it to fix it.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah, anything else?
Speaking of the op, I got a question for you. Where are you holding your hands? I've seen people that are like right here, but they grab it and it goes to there, but then I've heard people saying they're holding it to their face.
I mean, I'm not like much of an op user. I mean, I'm pretty good at the op, but I think really just do whatever you think is most comfortable. Like, I mean, what I like to do, and this is what I do in other VR games if I'm sniping, you want to make sure your hands are steady. Well, for one, I think it's a good idea for anyone that does use the op. For sure, you want to use motion damping. The other thing is that I often have my right hand, so I have 0% offhand influence. So I kind of just have my right hand, which is what I'm aiming with, kind of tucked in against my body to stabilize it, and then I sort of aim like this. I don't know. Like, I don't extend out my left hand that much, but I don't know. Pretty much just all I do is instead of holding it out, I just want to hold it closer to my body so it's stabilized a little more.
So it's kind of a preference, but the main thing's to stabilizer, right? Stabilize.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Jackie?
Oh, no, sorry. Controller malfunction. I was going to say,
okay,
does anyone else have any last questions for our amazing guest lecturer?
Amazing, I don't.
I think we would say that.
I just want to say thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
No, it's,
yeah, this is definitely helping out. Comparing this to ping pongage, like the more weapons Wednesday stuff we have with more people, the more we start to understand on which more guns are more preferred than others, and the more the merrier, basically.
Yeah. And also, I want to say, like, I'm not saying that my opinions are 100% objectively right. Like, a lot of this is somewhat preference based. My opinions on certain guns are going to be different from others. What I can say is, like, there are certain guns that I actually do think are just really good. Right now, the Uzis are actually, in theory, I think the best spray gun. I'm just not that comfortable with using them. I'm not that good at aiming with my left hand, right?
Yeah, me neither.
Right. But the players that are pretty comfortable with them, my teammate Scanter is a good example of this. He loves using the Uzis, and he's good with them. So if you're somebody like a Scanter where you're quite comfortable aiming with both hands, what I've been saying about the MP5 and P90, probably just go with the Uzis. Like, if you can find those, I think that's probably a better option. Yeah, sure, the Uzis are a little harder, or a fair bit harder to aim, like, at somewhat longer ranges than, like, with the MP5 or the P90, but why would you use... Generally, you're not going to be wanting to use your spray gun for much longer ranges. That's why in my loadout, I'm going to be dedicating it to some gun that is actually pretty good at longer ranges. The FAL, the MK18, the OP, the Magnum, right? So Uzis, you can't get... Really, those guns are just pretty good. Yes, you're limited with your movements, and similar with the Matadors, you got to be careful. If you're looking up, you don't want to flick too quickly. But just excellent guns for just destroying builds really quickly. And just does so much damage, right? They do 9 damage, plus, you got 2, that's 18 damage. You can just dish out a lot of damage quick with them, if you're able to hit a lot of your shots consistently. I'm just not able to do that as well as, like, basically, my comparative advantage is with the MP5 or the P90, so I'd rather use them.
Well, if there's no last questions, then it's going to time for the ridiculous question that you would never expect. If you were a candy bar, what candy bar would you be?
I'm not going to be someone who's good at answering this because I'm not much of a candy eater.
What about like a Mr. Good Bar? No, not Mr. Good Bar.
Mr. Good Bar.
Good bet, good bar.
Oh yeah, now I get it. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty basic with candy. I'm a big fan of chocolates, milk chocolates. I'm not.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm not much of a candy connoisseur. So among milk chocolates, I don't know. Like, it's kind of embarrassing. I actually don't know that much about like candy or chocolate because it probably sounds really weird. But I actually don't. I don't know. Maybe like I'm just gonna have like
Let's
the most
just say your favorite is
Reese's peanut butter cup. Like
That's a
I
great
like
one.
those, right?
That's a great one.
Peanut butter. I love the chocolate. It tastes great. I guess that, right?
I have to find
fact,
some
Reese's,
question
did you
that
know the
throws you
actual,
completely off, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact about Reese's. Did you know? Fun fact of the day, by the way. Did you know that Reese's was actually created by accident? Two people actually, like, genuinely, you know, in real life, stumbled upon each other when one had peanut butter and the other had chocolate, and it formed Reese's. You know, because they
Wow.
worked together. Eventually knowing.
Did not know that.
I'm thankful for those two
it's
people.
an actual true story. Yeah. It's an actual true story. Anyway, yeah.
Well,
Nothing
yeah.
important.
Had to, you know, make it a little bit light, and want to thank you again, of course, from everyone at Six Mentoring. And we hope, you know, anytime you're willing to jump in and have some fun. We're doing some more scrims and stuff like that, you know, where people are actually coaching actual squads of 3 who need a little bit of coaching, and we have a mentor behind them. It might be something that you're interested in. You're always welcome.
Yeah,
you're a welcome part of the
interested.
family, and thank you so much for everything that you've answered. And yeah, if there's no last questions, we'll definitely let you go perfectly on time. As crazy as that is.
I actually have scrims here starting soon. Just a few minutes.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I enjoy just talking about loadouts. It's something I like to think about a lot when I'm playing the game.
That's great.
It's funny. I don't know what's with you know, these I don't know what's with these specific sessions, but they've always been completely on time with when it starts and when it ends. Yeah, it's been completely on time, even with ping pongage. You know, we had questions afterward, but technically it ended at the exact time we wanted it to.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better at that. You know, making it a little bit more structured and organized and fun stuff like that.
Yeah, it really is dependent on, you know, if everybody else decides to actually, you know, allow that to happen, you know, the organization. That's the thing about a lot of this.
Very true.
Well, I'm going to get going.
Thanks, GoodBet. Yeah, go meet your team.
Yep.
It was an honor. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys.
Yeah.
We will see you soon.
Good to see you,
Take it
man.
easy, and also you see us.
Yeah,
Yeah, take it easy. Goodbye.
Yeah, see you, bro. See you guys.